$56,000? That's the number on the screen, and for a second you don't understand it because it's just sitting there in a clean little box on a financial aid worksheet like it means nothing, like it's a phone bill. 56,000, you read it again. You scroll up to make sure you didn't land on the wrong line, the lifetime figure, the loan with interest figure, some projection. No, that's 1 year. That's the cost of attendance for 1 year, the first of 4, and your daughter is asleep down the hall with her retainer in and a calculus quiz on her desk she's nervous about, and she is 17, and in roughly 12 months you are supposed to send someone this money. You sit with it. The house is quiet the way it only gets after midnight, the dishwasher long done, the dog's nails clicking once on the kitchen tile, and then nothing. You'd open the laptop to do something small, to look up a deposit deadline you think, or the difference between early action and early decision. One of those phrases you've been nodding along to at kitchen tables with other parents as if you understood them. And instead the calculator the school provides spit this back at you, and now you can't close the lid because closing the lid feels like lying. $56,000 a year. You do the only math your tired brain can do at this hour, the math any parent does first, which is just to multiply. 4 years. You already know what it's going to say before you say it, and you say it anyway under your breath to no one. $224,000, $250,000. You bought your first house for less than that. You're still paying on this one, and it costs less than what they want to educate one child for the length of time it takes that child to go from not being able to do her own laundry to having a degree and a hangover and a vague plan. And here's the thing you notice, the thing that actually scares you. Sitting there in the blue light, you are not thinking about whether to pay it. You're already past that. Some part of you skipped the whole question and went straight to scheming, refinance, second job, the retirement account you're not supposed to touch, the home equity line the bank keeps mailing you about like a temptation. Your mind is a small frantic animal looking for the money, and not once, not for 1 second has it stopped to ask whether this exact number, this exact school, this exact path is the thing you should be hunting for at all. It cost as much as a house, and you were supposed to feel grateful for the privilege. You think about your own parents briefly the way you do at this hour. They didn't have this conversation. College was a thing you could mostly work your way through or close to it. Somewhere in the last 30 years, the number detached from the ground and floated up here into house territory, into mortgage territory, and nobody renegotiated the feeling that came with it, the feeling that a good parent simply finds the money, doesn't flinch, doesn't make the kid feel like a burden, doesn't make college a thing the family had to afford. You inherited the feeling, you did not inherit the price, so you decide to actually run it. Not the dream version, the real one. You open the calculator app, the plain one, and you start typing 56,000 times 4, and you tell yourself, you'll be honest, you'll include the part everyone leaves out, the part where you don't have 200 grand in cash, the part where most of this becomes a loan with a number stapled to the back of it that nobody ever reads out loud. You type the first figure in, and the total that comes back is not the total you were bracing for, it's worse. And you sit very still because you finally understand that you've been staring at the wrong number this entire time. 56,000 times 4. The calculator says 224,000 and you already knew that, but you sit there long enough for the screen to dim because 224,000 is the brochure number. It's the number printed in the glossy foldout, the one with the photo of students laughing on a lawn nobody actually sits on. It assumes you have the money. You don't have the money. So this number is a lie of omission, and you start slowly to build the true one. You don't have $224,000 in cash. Be honest about what you do have, some savings you were guarding for exactly this, a little. Say you can put real money down each year and the rest becomes a loan. You don't even need the worst case. Use the average, the one you half remember reading. A kid graduates owing somewhere around $35,000, give or take, and that's the average, the middle of the pack, not the cautionary tale. So you type 35,000 into the box and it sits there looking almost reasonable, almost survivable, the price of a decent used car, and for a second you exhale. Then you remember loans aren't cars, a car you pay off and it's done. A loan keeps charging you for the privilege of having borrowed it. So you go find the rate somewhere north of 6% for a federal undergraduate loan, and you run the real schedule, the boring one, the one the brochure would never show. On $35,000 over the standard 10 years, the monthly payment lands near $400. You do the part that actually stops your breath. $400 a month times 12 times 10, about $47,000 paid back to borrow $35. $12,000 of pure interest, money that buys nothing, that erases no debt, that evaporates just for being late to having money. And that's the fast plan, the 10-year, the one that costs the most each month and the least in the end. Stretch it to 20 or 25 years, the way people do when $400 a month strangles them, and the monthly number shrinks while the total swells because the meter runs longer. 12,000 becomes 20, becomes more. The longer it hurts less each month, the more it costs in the end. And here's where your stomach drops, because you do the thing the brochure was built to stop you from doing. You stop counting in years and start counting in life. She graduates at 22. 10-year repayment. She is 32 years old before this is paid. 32, the age people are buying their own first houses, or trying to, or having kids of their own, or simply breathing without a payment carved out of every month. The brochure showed you a year. The loan shows you a decade. You were handed a single cheerful annual figure, $56,000, and somewhere underneath it, in small invisible print, was a decade of your daughter's adult life, pre-committed, pre-spent, before she has earned a dollar of it. You think of Dave from 2 streets over. You don't mean to. He just arrives in your head the way the cautionary example always does. Dave, whose kid got into the name school, the one you say with a little reverence, and Dave who told you at a barbecue last summer, beer in hand, smiling but not really smiling, that he'd borrowed basically all of it, that the prestige was worth it, and then changed the subject fast. You ran into him at the gas station in March and he looked older than the months between accounted for. He's still paying, not his kid, him. He took the parent loans on himself so his son wouldn't carry them, which sounded noble at the barbecue and now sounds like a man who quietly mortgaged his own 60s to buy a logo. He didn't price the decade, he priced the year 4 times and signed. So you sit with the real total now, the one with the interest baked in and the years spelled out, and it is bigger than the house size number that scared you in the first place, and that's the part that won't let you sleep. It was never the sticker at least you could see. This thing has a tail on it, a long one, and it doesn't whip back at you, it whips at her. You were ready to break yourself for the front of the brochure number. Nobody warned you the real one was hiding behind it, and that the person it lands on hardest isn't the parent doing the worrying at midnight. It's the 17-year-old asleep down the hall who hasn't agreed to any of this, and who has no idea what's being decided in her name. You decide at some point in those sleepless small hours to stop being a victim of the number and start being an adult about it. There's a difference, and you feel it the second you make the turn. A victim asks, "How do I pay this?" An adult asks, "Is this the price or just the first price they showed me?" And the moment you ask the second question, the wall you've been throwing yourself against for 2 nights turns out to have doors in it you never tried because you never thought to look. The first door is the one nobody mentions because it sounds like cheating. Sticker price isn't the real price. You'd been reading the $56,000 the way you read a price tag at a store, fixed, printed, final. But you go digging and you find the term net price, the number a family actually pays after the school's own aid, and the gap between the two can be obscene. There are private schools with a $55,000 sticker that after their institutional grants net out around $22,000 for a real family with a real income. 22, you read that twice, the sticker was theater. The sticker was the manufacturer's suggested retail price of a car, and you'd been about to pay it in full at the dealership without once asking what people actually drive off the lot paying. A school can cost less than your in-state flagship after aid, and you'd have crossed it off the list for being too expensive based on a number designed to be negotiated down. The second door is geography. You'd been looking at out-of-state options because the name sounded better in your mouth, and you find the premium attached to that vanity. In-state public tuition and fees run around $11,000 a year, while out-of-state for a comparable public school runs closer to $25,000, a gap of roughly $14,000 every year, something like $56,000 over 4 years, paid for the same diploma quality in exchange for being able to say a different state's name. $56,000. The exact number that scared you on night one turns out to be, in another light, just the surcharge for crossing a state line you didn't need to cross. The third door is the one that actually makes you put the laptop down and stare at the wall because it's so simple it feels illegal. The community college transfer, 2 years at the local 2-year school, cheap, sometimes nearly free with aid. The first 2 years of nearly any degree being the same general education slog everywhere. Then transfer in, finish at the 4-year name, and the diploma she hangs on the wall says the 4-year name. Not the community college, the destination. You'd been picturing the whole 4 years at full freight, and here's a move that cuts the bill close to in half without cutting one word off the degree that matters. The single biggest saver on the whole board, and you'd never read it because nobody puts it in the brochure. The brochure is selling you the lawn. Are you about to pay full price for a thing you never priced? You ask it out loud, quietly, to the dark kitchen, and then you go back to the board because there's one more move, and it's the one that ties the others together. It's ROI, and it's the honest version, not the bumper sticker. Yes, a bachelor's degree is on average worth real money. The average starting salary lands around $60,000, and over a lifetime degree holders earn something like $1.2 million more than people who stopped at high school. That's real, that's not nothing. But the word doing all the work in that sentence is average, and you finally let yourself see the variation underneath it. Borrowing $25,000 or $35,000 against a field that starts you at $50,000 or $60,000, that's a mortgage on a house that appreciates. Borrowing $100,000 or more for a field that pays $35,000, that's the trap, the same trap Dave's smile was hiding. The debt isn't good or bad on its own, it's good or bad relative to what the degree earns back. You have to price the diploma against the paycheck it actually buys. By field, by school, by the real net number eyes, not against a feeling. And that's the thing that lands sitting there with 5 browser tabs open and the coffee gone cold. There was never one right path that a good parent grits their teeth and pays for. There was a board with moves on it, and you were one signature away from mortgaging yourself for a number you never questioned. Not because you were stupid, but because nobody ever told you the number was a starting bid. You'd mistaken the most expensive door for the most loving one. You feel almost good, lighter. You've found the moves. You've priced it like the adult in the room. You can see a version of this that doesn't end with you working until you're 70. And then a colder question arrives, the one underneath all the others, and the lightness goes out of you because all these moves still cost something, and you haven't yet asked the most dangerous question of all. Out of whose life does the rest of this money actually come? Out of whose life? You sit with it, and you already know because there's only one account big enough to raid for the gap that's left after all the smart moves, and it's the one with your own old age in it. It's the home equity line the bank keeps tempting you with. It's the 401k you're not supposed to touch, which really means you can touch it, which is the whole problem. It's the parent loans Dave took on himself, the noble sounding ones, the ones where the kid stays clean and the parent quietly drowns. You find the line that finally organizes the whole thing in your head, not a statistic, just something a planner says, the kind of thing that's true the second you hear it. You can borrow for college. You can't borrow for retirement. There is no loan for being 70 with no money. There is no financial aid office for the last 20 years of your life. The kid has 40 years of earning ahead of her to handle a reasonable debt. You do not. That asymmetry is the entire game, and you'd been about to play it backwards. You think about Dave again, but differently now, without the flinch. Not as a guy who loves his kid more than you do, as a preview. He took the whole weight onto his own back because at the barbecue, beer in hand, that felt like love, the purest version, the parent who sacrifices everything so the child carries nothing. And now he's in his late 50s with a payment that runs into his 60s, and the thing nobody says about that kind of sacrifice is that it doesn't end with him. It rolls downhill. The kid who graduated debt-free becomes the 40-year-old whose father can't retire, can't cover his own medical bills, needs help, and now the weight lands on the kid anyway, just later, just heavier, just dressed up as devotion. Martyring yourself doesn't remove the burden from your child. It defers it with interest and hands it back to them at the worst possible time with your name on it. So you do the real math, the one that doesn't pretend you're infinite. You map the route, the transfer for the first 2 years, in-state for the back half, chasing the net price and the merit aid instead of the sticker, capping what she borrows at something the field she's actually drawn to can repay, say a degree that starts her near that 60 grand average against a debt around 35, not 100. A number that's a used car, not a second mortgage, and then you draw the line you weren't drawing before. Your retirement contributions don't stop. They don't even pause. Whatever's left after the sane plan funds her is what funds her. Not the home equity, not the 401k, not your 70-year-old self, sold tonight to a financial aid office to buy a feeling. It feels for a moment like failing her. That's the part you have to sit inside because the old belief doesn't leave quietly. It tells you a real parent would find a way, would sign anything, would consider any limit on what you'll spend, a kind of cowardice. You feel the pull of it. It would be easier almost to just sign to be the hero in the barbecue story, to never have to say the word budget to your own child. The new way is harder precisely because it asks you to look like you love her less in order to actually love her more. Loving them was never the same as breaking yourself for them. You'd had the two things fused your whole life, and prying them apart in the dark of your kitchen feels like betraying something, right up until you realize the thing you'd be betraying is just a story and the daughter is real. A free family, not a martyr under a mortgage-sized degree and a kid funded by your future. A parent who's still standing at 70, a kid funded sanely, both of you out from under the long tail of the thing. You can see it. You can almost feel the weight come off, the thing in your chest that's been clenched for 3 nights, finally letting its grip go. And then it sits back up because you've solved everything except the one thing you can't solve alone. This whole plan, the transfer, the in-state back half, the borrowing cap, the school she may not even have picked, assumes you know what she wants. And you don't. You've spent 3 nights pricing a future for a person you haven't asked. Tomorrow you have to walk down that hall, sit across from a 17-year-old, and find out whether the life you've been budgeting is the one she actually wants to live. You wait until the morning the house is calm. Not a summit, not a talk with a capital T, just Saturday, the kettle on, her hair still flat on one side from the pillow. The calculus quiz survived and forgotten. You slide the laptop across the table with the tabs still open, and you don't lead with the speech you'd rehearsed at 2 a.m. You lead with the truth. So I looked at what college actually costs, you say, and I think we should look at it together because some of it's nuts and some of it isn't, and I don't want to decide your next 10 years without you in the room. She pulls the laptop closer. She's quiet for a second, scrolling, and then, wait, 56,000 a year? And you nod, and something in her face does the same thing yours did 3 nights ago, that little recoil, and you realize she never knew either. She'd been picturing the lawn too. You walk her through it the way you'd want someone to walk you through it. Sticker versus what people actually pay. The in-state number against the out-of-state surcharge. The 2 years cheap then transfer move where the diploma still says the name. You don't hide the part about Dave. You don't hide the part about your own retirement, the line you won't cross, and you watch her absorb that you've put a limit on it, and you brace for her to look let down. She doesn't. I didn't want you to do that anyway, she says, like it's obvious, like she's been waiting for permission to say it. And then she tells you something you didn't know because you never asked, that she's not even sure about the big name school everyone's been assuming, that the thing she actually wants to study has nothing to do with prestige and everything to do with a program she found at a school you'd written off for being unglamorous. The path you'd spent 3 nights pricing wasn't even the path. You'd been budgeting a stranger's future. The real one was sitting across the table the whole time, drinking orange juice. So the two of you build it right there, on a Saturday, on the back of an envelope, because that's somehow more real than the calculator. Start at the 2-year, bank the savings, transfer to the program she actually wants, in-state, chase the net price, borrow an amount tied to what the field actually pays, not $1 more. Your retirement stays funded. That part's not on the table, and she's the one who keeps it off the table, which loosens something you didn't know you'd been carrying high in your shoulders for 3 nights. By the time the envelope is full, nobody is drowning in it. There's no logo on the wall worth your 70th year, and there's no version of this where she's 32 and paying for a brochure. Here's what I keep thinking, telling you this. Somewhere right now, there's a parent at a kitchen table at midnight, laptop open, doing exactly the multiplication you did, feeling exactly the duty, already scheming the refinance and the second job and the account they're not supposed to touch, and not once stopping to ask whether the number hunting them is even the right number. So I'll ask you the question that turned the whole thing around. Are you funding a dream or are you buying a brochure? Because they are not the same thing, and the difference is the rest of your life. If this is the conversation you're walking toward, the 17-year-old, the bill, the 1 year you've got left, stick around. We do the math out loud here so you don't have to do it alone at 2 a.m. Subscribe and bring the envelope. The quiz is on the fridge now. She's gone back upstairs. You close the laptop, and for the first time in 3 nights, closing the lid doesn't feel like lying. We good? She calls down. Yeah, you say we're good.